Hey guys, this is video 2 this week. This one's on augmented chords. Hopefully you've watched the one on diminished chords now, so that kind of is a bit more clear to you. We are going to cover it in a bit more depth over the next week, like a couple of weeks, so don't panic if it's still a little bit hazy. Hopefully this video will help with the augmented kind of stuff, and you can always refer back to it. So, quick recap. Diminished chords. If we have a diminished chord, we know that the formula is root flat third or minor third flat fifth. If we're having a seventh, we have half diminished, which is our minor 7 flat 5, which is root minor third flat flat fifth, and then a flat seventh, and then we have a full diminished chord, which is root minor third flat fifth double flattened seventh. That's all I'm going to say on those. So now augmented chords. So much like with a diminished chord, the words diminished implied that we flattened the fifth. Augmented are pretty much the opposite of that, in the fact that the word augment means to add stuff together, to combine something, or to increase something in some way. That's what we're doing here, augmenting. With diminished, we were referring to the fifth. Augmenting is no different. It's augmenting the fifth chord, i.e. sharpening it. Okay? So that's pretty much what an augmented chord is. Two important facts you need to know about augmented chords. First of all, they're always major. There will always be a major chord, so the third will always be a major third. Just take that as read. The second thing you need to know is that augmented chords are non-diatonic. Because we're sharpening that fifth, it therefore cannot be diatonic in a standard kind of key. It's just important to know. It comes kind of more relevant when you're dealing with different scales and that kind of stuff. But with standard major scale stuff, the fifth, by augmenting the fifth, you take it out of key. It's not a bad thing. It's just important to know that that's the case. If you're writing a melody line and it has an augmented chord that you're trying to write a melody line over, you have to make sure that you sharpen any kind of fifth that you've got going over that chord. Otherwise, it'll sound clashy. You may want it to sound clashy, but you just need to know that it's going to do it. Okay. That aside, let's actually look at augmented chords. So, we have our standard triad. If we're in the key of C, our standard triad would be C, E, G. Augmenting the fifth means that we have C, E, G sharp. Remember that it's always going to be a major chord, so those two, our C and our E, our 1 and our 3, don't change at all. The only one that changes is our 5, which gets sharpened. Okay, in the case of C, from G to G sharp. Okay, and that works across the board. That again explains why it's not diatonic. G sharp, of course, isn't in the C of G. G is the fifth of C. G sharp doesn't appear, so that's why it moves out of being diatonic. Just so you're aware of that. So, yes, root, major third, augmented fifth. Okay, the triad of that sounds like this. Okay, again, quite crunchy a bit, tension, lots of tension, but used correctly, it's a powerful tool in your arsenal of composition. So be sure to kind of experiment with these. So that's our triad: root, major third, augmented fifth. Nice and easy. So now we need to extend this to seventh, because of course that's what we've been doing. That's the whole point of this whole module. So extending that to seventh chords. As with diminished, you have two options. We wouldn't just give you one, that would be boring. So the two options, I will say them out loud and let you hear them. You have augmented 7 and augmented major 7. Now, considering that there is one called augmented major 7, it stands to reason that the standard augmented 7 chord doesn't use a major 7. And there's only one other type of 7, unless you're talking about diminished chords, which is our minor 7. So it's an augmented chord, one with a major 7, one with a minor 7. Okay, so just run over that. The first one, let's talk about our augmented major 7, because that one is slightly more diatonic than the one with the minor 7, only because the major 7 also appears within its corresponding key. So if we're in the key of C and we use the major 7, that's a B, that's in the key of C, so we can use it. So my favourite use, by the way, of the augmented major 7 chord is the end of the James Bond theme. It goes da dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da da. Love it, brilliant, excellent use of it. Okay, it sounds ambiguous, it sounds tensiony, it sounds brilliant. So Yeah, love that. So that's augmented major 7. Let's go with the actual formula of it. So we have root major 3rd, augmented 5th, and then major 7th. So there we go. Okay. That's pretty much that. It's just one of these things you have to remember. So that's an augmented major 7. An augmented 7, by association, it's not called a major 7, it's just called a 7, so we take that as it's a dominant, or it's a dominant 7, or a minor 7. So the arpeggio for that is root major 3rd, augmented 5th, minor 7. Okay, so we get, which I think my arpeggio should work like this, my scale chord should sound like this. Okay, which is a little bit, because it's got that minor 7 on the top, it sounds a little bit more clashy, a little bit flat, I feel. Because this, that just sounds so good, but that, it's a little bit more muddy, a little bit more kind of clashy. Again, used correctly, sounds really, really good, but personally my favourite is the one with a major 7 on the top. So that's basically it. That's augmented chords. You have your standard triad, which is root, major 3rd, augmented 5th, or sharp 5th. You have your augmented major 7, which is root, major 3rd, augmented 5th, major 7. And then you have your augmented 7, which is root, major 3rd, augmented 5th, and a minor 7 on the top. Okay, I know this is a lot of numbers, and this all kind of just seems like I'm just shouting numbers at you, but once these click, they're just important to know. Again, like with diminished, on the listening test, you won't be required to tell whether it's a major or a minor 7 at the top. You just need to identify that it's diminished. Okay, my advice for that is, if it sounds minor but clashy, it's going to be diminished. If it sounds major but clashy, it's going to be augmented. Your major 7 and your minor 7s you should be able to identify anyway. Your dominant 7 should hopefully stand out. So then it's just a case of, is it augmented or is it diminished? We will cover more of this in college, so don't worry. If you have any questions, again, I'm just on the end of a Facebook message or an email. Hope this helps. Take it easy.